Hello everyone, it's me, your average bonehead, Jay, and let me tell you the story of Rayman! Rayman, one of my favorite video game franchises, and a well-respected one, by everyone that isn't its owners, Ubisoft. One of gaming's greatest mysteries is how and why Ubisoft treats the Rayman series the way they do. Starting off strong with 3 great games, or 2 games and a very fun torture simulator, Rayman 1, The Great Escape, and Hoodlum Havoc were very fun and enjoyable and well liked by many. So you think it wouldn't be long before we got,
Rayman 4!
But for some reason, the gap between Rayman 3 and Rayman Origins was big enough to classify as a second Grand Canyon. And to fill in that space, Ubisoft had no problem allowing Rayman's franchise to be completely hijacked by a slightly less annoying version of the Minions. I mean, yeah, the Rabbids did get good games, 2 of which were amazing Mario games, and eventually we did get 2 amazing Rayman games with gorgeous art styles, Rayman Origins and Rayman Legends, with Rayman Legends Definitive Edition on Switch being one of my favorite 2D platformers. But it is kinda shocking how Ubisoft chooses to treat what was basically their mascot at one point. On top of that, it's been a decade and we still don't have another new, true Rayman game, because phone games don't count. Which also explains why I'm doing this video in December, because it'd be a Christmas miracle if Ubisoft makes another Rayman game. But granted, they have been doing things with Rayman. The Mario + Rabbids Sparks of Hope DLC had its 3rd and final wave center around Rayman, the Phantom Show, and even more recently, Rayman was a major side character in the show Captain Laserhawk, where he swore, did drugs, and killed people. Many people agree he was the best part of the show. But believe it or not, that is actually the second time Rayman's been in an animated series. Because turning back the clock all the way to right before Rayman 2 came out, there was an attempt to make a Rayman show. A 3D animated one, that is. Titled Rayman the Animated Series. And for a 3D show made in 1999, I think the animation actually looks pretty nice. And believe it or not, according to interviews, this show takes a lot more from Rayman 2 than most people think, as it actually takes its main story ideas from earlier versions of the game's story, where it was going to be about Rayman escaping an intergalactic circus rather than robotic pirates. And we'll see more about how the show took its early inspirations from this older version of Rayman 2. I'm going to actually be talking about all the episodes in this one video. The reason why I can do that is because the show was cancelled after only 4 episodes. A 5th one was allegedly written, but we have no information on that. So yeah, I think it'll be pretty easy to get through this. So without any further ado, let's take a look at Rayman the Animated Series, as we get our first episode, Lac Mac Napping. The episode begins with us seeing a flying circus land run by the great Rigatoni, where it turns out that his performers, who also make up our main cast, are actually prisoners to him. We have a girl named Bettina, a fairy named Flips, a mole person named
Cookie Lava Ghetto,
and this weird bunny creature named Lac Mac. And this is what I meant when I said early inspirations of Rayman 2 were probably influenced the making of this show. Because doesn't Lac Mac look like he came from early concepts of Globox? Doesn't Bettina closely resemble Lee from Rayman 2, on top of her name being reminiscent of Batilla from Rayman 1 and later Rayman Origins? Hell, Flips is just a fairy. And on top of that, the people who inhabit the world, don't they kinda just look like elongated teensies? On top of them closely resembling Count Razov, who would later be introduced in Rayman 3? I'm just saying I don't think it was coincidence, but this all does lead to one glaring problem with this show, and that's the lack of Rayman things. The world does look like Rayman's world, and the characters look like they would fit in it perfectly fine, but aside from Rayman himself and Admiral Razorbeard for some reason, there's no other Rayman characters in this show. And even then, Razorbeard's inclusion is very weird, because unlike Rayman 2 where he's the main antagonist, in this show, well, for one, he looks a little different, but 2, he's nothing more than the main lackey for Rigatoni, and it's still a mystery as to why they did this. But speaking of Rayman characters, Rayman himself is the newest acquisition to the circus, as under the orders of Rigatoni, Razorbeard is trying to get Rayman to do tricks using his floating limbs. And Rayman in this show is voiced by, and I swear to God this is true, Billy West. That's why he just sounds like Fry with a Boston accent.
Nice place, though I wouldn't want to live here.
Though I actually do kind of like Rayman's personality in this show. He's sarcastic, kind of cynical, but also proactive and pretty heroic, which is honestly not a bad interpretation of Rayman. Speaking of sarcastic and cynical, he manages to annoy both Razorbeard and Rigatoni enough so they lock him away with the others. Then Rigatoni gives off this random lore dump.
The great Rigatoni finally has power and respect! No longer a thug, a merciless criminal, businessman.
And then goes full Hollywood agent mode on Lacmac.
Free? I made you famous! I give you a place to live, food to eat, and what do I get in return?
They then head off to their next destination, but while on their way, Rayman and the others end up realizing that Lacmac is very strong. So they have him pry the bars open, and when Razorbeard comes to stop them, we get weirdly one of the few action scenes in this entire show. Yeah, despite being a Rayman show, there's rarely any action in it. Most of it is just chases. This is one of the few action scenes, and it's not even Rayman doing any of the fighting. So while trying to escape, Rayman uses Cookie's bread slicer to cut a hole into the tent, and they all manage to escape as the tent comes crashing down. While it was doing that though, Rigatoni ended up calling the police station and got a hold of Detective Grubb, and assigns him with the task of finding Rayman and the others and bringing them back to him, as Rigatoni declares revenge before the circus crashes, and I'm assuming he dies because we never see him or Razorbeard again throughout the series. Now that they're free, they end up finding a city where they end up running into a mechanic who's trying to fix and or get rid of his old car. Or, I'm sorry, how do you say it actually?
My friend here can fix your car.
Beautiful. Cookie manages to fix the car, and they take it off. And that ends episode 1. Episode 2, no parking. The only episode to have complete continuity with the previous episode that just happened. Still driving through the city in their car, they end up in a car chase with Detective Grubb.
Where'd you learn to drive? The circus?
And they manage to give him the slip while giving us a reference to Tonic Trouble. They stop by a park that has a no parking sign, get it? And Cookie decides to
write my last will and testament.
Okay, I wasn't expecting that. But at the same time, Flips ends up finding a teddy bear in the garbage and takes a liking to it. She tries showing the others, but they all turn her down, and she goes and sleeps in the car. But it ends up getting towed away with her still inside of it, and the others have no choice but to go after her. They head off to the train station where they run into Detective Grubb, and Rayman goes full Team Rocket and disguises himself poorly in order to figure out where the car would be. After getting the information they need, Grubb ends up recognizing him, and the chase is on again. And we do get a really funny joke.
Police!
They make it on the train and end up having a close call with Flips, but are unable to get her. And on a side note, I do like the design of the city they're in, mainly because it kind of resembles Bandland from Rayman 1. Like I said before, the world and characters of this show do look like they'd fit into Rayman's world, it's just the lack of other iconic Rayman characters that is its biggest problem. They make it to the scrapyard, where they see that the car is about to be destroyed by this unholy creature. And on top of that, Detective Grubb is right behind them. So they sneak in behind him, and I still to this day do not know why Rayman wanted to have Grubb's car destroyed. I mean, he didn't find you guys there, so he was probably gonna leave. So if anything, his care being gone now means he has to stay there longer and would probably find you guys. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Anyways, they catch up to Flips, and using his abilities, Rayman launches his hand to the car and manages to save Flips before she is eaten. And just when it looks like they're cornered by Grubb, Lacmac attempts vehicular manslaughter, and they manage to escape as Grubb's car gets destroyed. Unfortunately, Lacmac can't drive, and he drives them off a cliff, causing Rayman to use his iconic helicopter hair to save them all.
Oh, just a little trick I picked up.
Well, whatever you're doing, keep doing it, okay?
Unfortunately, it doesn't last long as they fall out of the sky, and that was the last time Rayman will use any of his iconic abilities throughout the rest of this show. Yeah, that's another criticism. After this episode, there really is no reason for this to be a Rayman show. Rayman isn't even the main character in the next 2 episodes, and on top of that, like I just said, he doesn't even use his iconic abilities anymore. But anyways, they end up landing in an abandoned apartment, which they call home. Lacmac somehow saved the teddy bear and gave it to Flips, and little do our escaped heroes know that their new apartment is directly above Detective Grubb's apartment. And yes, that would make for an amazing sitcom. Now, the next 2 episodes, High Anxiety and Big Date, I don't really have much to say about these 2, as they're both very simple episodes plot-wise and have very little to do with the fact that they're in a Rayman show. Starting with High Anxiety, Cookie is complaining over a headache, so they take him to the
Doctor!
And when they get there, he ends up running some tests, and we get a funny joke.
G-U-R-A-Q-T-I-N-V-U. Oh, don't blame you. I am pretty good looking.
but then the
doctor
ends up stating that Cookie's insane and commits him to an insane asylum. So Rayman and the gang sneak in to break him out, all while avoiding Detective Grubb, who's in there to visit his mother, who Cookie happens to be sharing a room with. We get a funny joke.
What are we curing today?
Ligyrophobia, the fear of loud noises.
Oh, sorry to disturb you all.
And whatever this is.
You see, Cookie? You like cookies too? Help me with this coat and I'll show you where they keep the cookies.
And ultimately, they all manage to escape, while Grubb gets confused by the guards as one of the patients. The next episode, and our last one, Big Date, has Cookie build a telescope so they can see into Grubb's apartment,
Cookie, this is the best thing you invented since sliced bread.
where it turns out he was apparently able to get out of the asylum pretty quickly, and he actually has a date. Unfortunately, my guy got no game, and it's up to Rayman and the gang to save the date. Which they almost do, but because Grubb's an idiot, he ends up ruining it. I, for the life of me, do not know what Grubb was trying to accomplish here. But luckily the day was saved due to Rayman's angelic voice.
Ta-da-ta-da-ta-ta. Sorry for the date. Hope I'm not too late. The date went so wrong, so I wrote this song. These flowers are to make up for the sorrow. How about the movies tomorrow?
Beautiful. And the series ends on that note. Yeah, like I said before, the show only lasted for 4 episodes before it was cancelled, with a 5th one allegedly scripted, but never animated. As I alluded to before, I don't hate this show, I actually kinda like it. I can quote it a lot for some reason. And I do think the first 2 episodes are pretty interesting and kind of play into the fact that the show is about Rayman, but it's just baffling to me how this show only managed to last 4 episodes. I didn't think it was that bad, especially when you consider the fact that Rabbids Invasion managed to last 3 seasons, which, okay, yeah, I don't think that one's bad either, but you get my point. Rayman's just a franchise I really love. I love his 5 main games, and I also love the Mario plus Rabbids games also. But I just want Rayman to finally get another chance. It's been a decade since Legends. We're due for a new game. Whether that be another 2D game or finally another 3D game, it doesn't truly matter to me. I just think we're due for one. And with Rayman's once again recent resurgence, I think it's fair to assume we might be getting a Christmas miracle. But on top of wanting another game, I also think with the popularity of Rayman and Captain Laserhawk, I think it's okay to also want a new show starring Rayman that's a bit more in line with how he is in the games. I think it's about time Rayman gets another chance to be the star of his own show again. Now, I'm your average bonehead Jay, and
See you in Rayman 4!
And I wish you all good night.